Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles in this episode, but we're going to talk about investors, venture capitalists hovering around the anime, manga, and webtoon spaces. BlackRock and Blackstone, they both used to be part of the same company. Both of these companies do invest in entertainment, and when they invest in entertainment, there tend to be strings attached, a lot of DEI and ESG strings, according to some people, the extent of which, again, according to who you ask, could be debated. But there is a pattern every time one of these companies gets involved in video games or Hollywood or whatever it is. It tends to lead to changes that are noticeable by consumers. It tends to lead to more DEI mandates and content that is best described as being current year. And now they basically got their sights set on anime, manga, webtoon. Of course they do. Of course they do. It might be maybe this isn't a cause for alarm. Maybe this is a bit premature. But it is a pattern that we've seen happen again and again. And I can tell you, as someone who has personally dealt with investors, sometimes they have more sway over your company than you initially thought they would. I'm not going to go into details, but let's just say that sometimes you make a deal with the devil thinking you're going to get short-term gains, and they wind up having more control over your output and your income than you anticipated, and you really just have to ride it out. And sometimes they invest in these companies, and then they wind up running them into the ground. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But let's talk about this, because anime and manga fans are freaking out now, because they're like, oh my God, they've already ruined AAA gaming, they've already ruined Hollywood, and here they come for our Japanese comics too. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. No woohoos today. People say I should do like woot. So we got a couple of different stories here. And we talked about this before. We talked about BlackRock investing in WEBTOON. WEBTOON is going public. And the reason that they go public, the reason that they ask for investors or investment dollars, is because they want to get bigger. And I think what happens is a lot of companies today, they don't want to do their time. They want to blow up overnight. The founders want to cash out. They usually have a 5 or 10 year plan. And it's not like it used to be, where you start a business and you grow it organically and you make it sustainable and you stay in business for decades. And in a lot of cases, it becomes a family business. Now everything is corporate owned now. So WEBTOON is taking money from BlackRock. Apparently they're going to invest $50 million or something into WEBTOON, and that warranted, a headline on Market Watch. And then we're going to talk about this company, Infocom, Japan's largest e-manga platform, is going to get purchased by Blackstone, American company Blackstone, at $1.7 billion deal. I think this might happen to WEBTOON eventually too. So there's definitely something going on. So these companies, they are, I believe, kind of parasitic. They do chase trends, and they see that while the American comic book market is down and Western animation is down and Hollywood is down, manga and anime are doing fine. WEBTOON, at least in terms of users, is doing fine. But to borrow a term from Cory Doctorow, the venture capitalists getting involved usually leads to enshittification, which is, I believe these websites will become enshittified and probably strip mined, and your data will be strip mined, and they'll probably start censoring more and more heavily. I'm sure they will. They absolutely will. Because these companies, again, regardless of how you feel about the extent of the depth of the rabbit hole of DEI and ESG, they do have guidelines that they adhere to when they acquire a company, and they do enforce those guidelines on the companies that they invest in. And it might not be quite the conspiracy theory that some people make it out to be, but they're not going to allow lowly stuff probably on the site, or what I'm saying, like if they do already, like that's probably not going to happen. So let's talk about this one first. I think Cabrutus actually posted this, and it's making the rounds on Twitter. It's coming from Anime Hunch. American company Blackstone Inc. to acquire Japan's largest e-manga site in a $1.7 billion deal. Blackstone, the world's largest alternative asset manager, is set up to acquire Infocom, Japan's largest e-manga platform, in a deal valued at $1.7 billion. This marks Blackstone's biggest private equity transaction in Japan to date. Blackstone will purchase a majority stake in Infocom and launch a tender offer for the remaining shares at 6,000 yen each. The deal values Infocom's equity at about $275 billion or $1.7 billion. The deal will give Blackstone access to Japan's booming digital manga market, which is estimated to be worth $3 billion. So they're basically buying half of it. It's like they're just like gobbling it up. Infocom's main revenue source is Mecha Comic, a popular website and app featuring serialized manga for a small fee per chapter. And that's kind of along the lines of what WEBTOON is doing too, except WEBTOON is Korean. Mecha Comic is a leading destination for digital manga in Japan, boasting a vast library of titles catering primarily to female readers in their 30s and 40s. It contains both popular titles as well as original ones. However, it's their romance manga that has garnered much attention. According to Bloomberg, Blackstone's move is a shrewd investment, recognizing the untapped potential of Japan's soft power empire, which would be manga, anime. Because that's where it starts, right? It starts in manga, becomes anime, and then becomes video games, and it becomes a cultural phenomenon. So if you start at the source, if you want to kind of change the direction of things, I'm just saying. They highlight the growing global influence of Japanese manga and anime and suggest that Blackstone is ahead of the curve in capitalizing on this cultural phenomenon. Blackstone plans to expand Infocom's original content, focusing on genres popular with its primarily female readership, a demographic with growing disposable income. Well, more and more women are not having kids. I think, especially millennials, kids are expensive. What are you going to do, And it just seems like a lot of, I don't know. This is the same demographic that WEBTOON has, actually. That while Infocom has a small English language business in North America, Blackstone would prioritize building up original content creation in Japan before expanding overseas. So they're not going to Americanize it, but I do believe they're going to have a lot of influence on the content, the output, because again, regardless of how you feel about the extent of the DEI and ESG stuff, it is there. It is on their website. This is what they're all about. And, a lot of times and again, it's not even these companies. And again, BlackRock and Blackstone, they actually started the same company. I was like, why are there two? They started as the same company, and then there was a conflict between the founders, and they split. But they have a lot of the same ideology, which they're pushing into various businesses that they invest in. They invest in everything. But again, I'm telling you, as someone who has personal experience in this, any investor, whether it's Blackstone, BlackRock, or even just an individual or a small group. When they invest in your company, you have to answer to them. And you're going to change your business based on what they tell you because they gave you a bunch of money. And that might even be in the fine print. You got to do what we say because we gave you money. And the long-term game is they invest in you so you can grow your business as fast as possible. And then everybody cashes out. If you're taking venture capital, if you're having these companies buy, or you're going public, just in general, you're going public, the end game is eventually to cash out. But what happens is these companies keep selling pieces and pieces and pieces of themselves off, and then they don't have a lot of control. And this is how founders lose control of their companies, because people have gotten away from the idea that you start a business, you grow it lean and mean, organically, and you don't take outside investments, and you take it public, and that's the way to go. Disney would not be in the shape it's in right now, I don't think, if it were a privately owned company. But then the flip side is Disney wouldn't be as big as it is right now if it were a privately owned company. And very few people have the money to keep their company private and still be able to compete, right? I mean, that's the thing. You're competing with Amazon. It's really hard to compete with Amazon on your own, and it's not even worth trying. I think if you're a content creator, just make good content and then just put it wherever people are. So this is what they said. They said the more original content we have, we can monetize the intellectual property over time. We can create animation or merchandising around that, which is going to be the potential opportunity in the midterm. So they're going to go to the source of weeb culture, and they're going to inject their Blackstone ness into it, and America is going to control some of this. Now, it's not everything. It's not like they bought, Kodansha or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? It's a sizable investment in this company. Sony was previously reported to be competing with Blackstone to acquire Infocom, and I wish they would have on some level. I wish they would have. Blackstone envisions a 5-year plan for Infocom, culminating in a public offering. However, Sakamoto acknowledged the possibility of other companies being interested in acquiring the business due to its strong content portfolio. They want to cash out. That's what's going on. Well, BlackRock now is backing WEBTOON, and we did talk about this in another video. WEBTOON is going public. WEBTOON is not profitable. So the common theme here, usually when a company goes out to investors, is they're not profitable or they're not profitable enough, and they know that if they get more money, or they think if they get more money, they can become profitable. Some of these companies never actually become profitable. They just keep taking venture capital and they keep chugging along for another 5 years, get another round of venture capital. You chug along for another 5 years, and then you talk some other suckers into it. As long as you show growth, they're all these investors are looking for an exit strategy, and they will actually tell you that. Like when they invest in your company, it'll be like, what is your 5-year plan? What is your 10-year plan? What is the exit strategy? Basically, when do we get a massive return on our investment if we give you a bunch of money right now to grow your business faster? But everybody's taking this shortcut, and it leads to ruin. Most companies now, all these tech companies that are folding, you can look at it and be like, oh, the common denominator is they took venture capital from these companies, from Blackstone or BlackRock or whoever, and they thought it was going to go on forever, and the business model was never sustainable. So I'm like, WEBTOON, is WEBTOON even sustainable? I mean, it's like they've been chasing eyeballs. Can they convert those eyeballs into customers? And I don't know, because I'm looking at this, like they do have some hit series that they've, printed. And I know that in the case of Lore Olympus, they're getting a TV show and stuff. And they've done, different anime, but this is a WEBTOON. Now, it's not on WEBTOON. It's on another platform. I can't remember which one, but Solo Leveling, people are saying is not doing very well. It sold 103 copies of DVD Volume 4. I thought they left some zeros off. I got to give a hat tip to RGE News here. The sales numbers for Solo Leveling DVDs has not improved with Volume 4. I haven't been following this at all. Raging Golden Eagle says DVD sales in current year likely won't be high, but comparing it to how many other shows sell is a good indication of popularity. 103 copies, 104 copies. That's crazy. That's less than a bottom rung Kickstarter, if that's true. So here's the thing. These venture capitalists might be investing in these companies, and they're not going to get the return on investment that they're hoping for. They're going to need to get a couple of hits, but there's a lot of stuff on here that's just not going to perform. I mean, and if Infocom is mostly romance stories, unless they get like a Fruits Basket or something, or an Inuyasha, like I don't know how they're going to make their money back on it. But yeah, everybody's concerned about this because they're like, hey, why is every AAA gaming studio going woke, quote unquote woke? Because you've got BlackRock and Vanguard and all these companies investing in them. And they do. I mean, again, I think people oversimplify it. They're like, well, this company is going to, come in and invest in this other company and all of a sudden they're going to go woke overnight. No, but there are certain criteria. There are certain criteria that need to be met to get their money. And they will ask you this during your initial meetings, like what do you plan to do? Or once they give you the money, you need to defer to us. And they know that it's a toxic term now, because here we have BlackRock, the guy in charge of BlackRock, Larry Fink, saying that he's going to stop using the term ESG. It doesn't mean that they're going to stop doing it. They're just not going to broadcast it as loudly as they have been, because it has become something else. Now, originally ESG was mostly environmental sustainability and stuff like that, which, that's something I actually have some experience with, because the company I used to work for, a software company I used to work for, we created software for the US government and for major corporations that tracked environmental issues. And it was about regulatory compliance. And a lot of these companies, they do have to comply with ESG, which is like, hey, you can't be dumping a bunch of oil into, Lake Erie or whatever, because that's not good for your ESG score there, Halliburton, or, what I'm saying? So that was what it initially meant. And then they started rolling DEI into ESG. So it wasn't enough to just be environmentally stable. Now you had to be diverse with the people that you hired, and that was part of the long-term plan too. But yeah, I mean it's a thing, and I think that we are going to potentially see some ramifications here. Now, anytime a U.S. company buys a Japanese company, I think it leads to bad things. I think it's going to be very Americanized here in a couple of years. They say they're not going to change things. They're absolutely going to. Somebody somewhere in the chain of command is going to say, hey, yeah, let's do some more, Totally Spies type stuff or something. Let's bring in more diverse voices from America. And let's just do let's do Crunchyroll Originals, High Guardian Spice, but everywhere. That's what we're going to do. So I do think it's going to change things. I think people have a right to be very cautious and very leery, but there we go. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.